Okay, I'm getting ready to try to start my engine. My Perkins 4-cylinder, 50 horsepower. It's a 4.108M. And the previous owner had lead acid batteries in here. They were house and starter batteries all in one unit. They were old, they got bad. I removed them. They were big honking batteries. I had to use a winch for the halyards for the mizzen to hoist them out of here. I did it all by myself. I don't know how I did it, but I got them out of here. Now I'm replacing it with another starter battery, and this is just a single starter battery. It's big enough to start this engine, so it's a brand new battery, 12 volt. And when I took the other batteries out, he had two of them connected together as two banks, separate banks. He didn't mark the cable colors, or which is positive and which is negative. And like an idiot, I didn't either when I unhooked it. I didn't even notice. I just unhooked it. I was trying to get these things out of here, and I just wanted them out of here. And of course, several months goes by, and actually years, because I've been doing fiberglass work. Now it's time to hook the new battery up, and I ain't sure what cable goes to what. So I traced them, and he rebuilt the engine and did a really good job. But when I look at the schematic, or the exploded view of the engine in the manual, it shows the starter, and the starter solenoid is on top of the starter. And the starter's in a place where I can barely see it. And so I traced one of the wires back to the starter, and I'm thinking, okay, this must hook to the starter solenoid. So this must be the plus cable. And I traced the other one a while back, and it was weird. I just didn't make sense to me. And so I almost hooked it up. I literally connected what I thought was the positive lead to the positive side of the battery. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought, no, because if I hook this up wrong, it's going to be a disaster. And this marina's closing, and I have to get out of here. So I can't have any screw-ups. So I went and retraced it again. And the one wire, originally I looked at some photographs that I had taken of the battery, the big batteries that he had in here, before I removed them, before I disconnected them. And this was quite a while ago. And I looked at those photographs, and I was pretty sure that the short wire in the battery box was the positive wire, and the long wire was the negative wire. But I went just now to reconfirm that, and I cannot find the photos anywhere. And it did have a red marker on it, and it's connected to what looks like a solenoid switch. So I'm assuming that he moved the solenoid off of the starter and moved it over to this other side of the engine when he rebuilt the engine. I'm hoping that's the case. So I'm assuming that that's the positive, because it has a red end on it. So I'm going to go ahead and hook that other end of it onto the positive of the battery. The negative one goes to the back side of the starter, which would normally be normal, because you'd have the red one go to the solenoid that's normally on top of the starter, which is a smaller unit, round unit, and then the negative would connect to the back of the starter. So I'm hoping this is going to be right, and I'm going to give it a try. Sure, it's on tight. Now, when you hook battery cables up to a motor that has an alternator, it's really important that the cables are tight. You do not want to use wing nuts ever, because they can come loose or something can bump into them. If you break connection to this battery, the starter battery, while the engine is running, it'll destroy your alternator. There's diodes in the alternator, and what happens is that alternator needs a load. And so it always has a load when it's hooked to the battery because it's always trying to charge the battery. Lead acid batteries and the alternators on engines are set up for lead acid batteries. And so what happens is if you break connection while the engine's running and that alternator's spinning, there's nowhere for that energy to go. And so what happens is it just blows up the diodes right inside the alternator, and you can just throw the alternator in the trash, and they are expensive. So make sure that everything, all your connections are tight. Remember, diesel engines vibrate a lot. Okay, here's the moment of truth. I'm going to hook up the negative side now. And hopefully I won't hear anything or have any massive sparks or any crazy stuff. Okay, here goes. I'm going to touch it. Okay, nothing. That's a good sign. I hear nothing. This down here is the water inlet, so it brings salt water in from under the boat to cool the engine. The black hose there is for the engine cooling. It goes to the impeller that runs the salt water through the heat exchanger. I just realized, because I kept wondering, where's the strainer at? Where's the strainer? I kept thinking, for years, but I just never got down here to look. Well, he doesn't have a strainer on the saltwater inlet, which is not good. So if there's a strainer down there, I don't know where in the hell it is, but it isn't between this inlet and the impeller on the engine. So evidently there is no strainer. That's just asking for trouble. So what I'm going to do is, he has a green garden hose hooked up to it here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a green garden hose, and it's teed in. And so there's a through-hole fitting with a valve, and quarter-turn valve, and that opens up the seawater. And then over here, he has this other valve teed in with the green handle, and that is for what he has a garden hose hooked up for is that after he goes sailing and he comes back to the slip here, he would hook that garden hose to the water faucet out on the dock and run fresh water through the engine to clean out the salt water. And so I've run this a few times. I did the same thing because he recommends that I do it. I'm not sure if it's a really that necessary or even if it's a really good idea. I don't see how it could hurt anything because it's just cleaning salt water out of the system. There's no zincs inside the heat exchanger on this boat. He talked to a mechanic and a diesel mechanic that works on boats, and he says, don't even waste your time putting zincs in a heat exchanger. They just crumble up into dust, and then now you got all that stuff going through your system. So at any rate, I'm just going to go ahead and run fresh water. So what I'm going to do now, this boat's been sitting a long time, and I ran the... I recently kind of cleaned the bottom. He had this kind of, it's like a loofah hooked to a piece of PVC tubing on a T, and he uses it to clean the bottom of the boat. It works pretty good. And so I went over this recently with it. I cleaned the bottom by hand a few weeks ago. I'm going to turn the hose on first, just crack it open. I got a lot of pressure there. I'm just going to turn it on a little bit. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and open the through-hole valve, and I hope this thing turns because I haven't moved it in a while. Yep, there it goes. It's on. Okay, now I'm going to turn this hose on. Ooh, I just heard. I hear that? Okay, that's a good sign. It was clogged. It blew a bunch of sea stuff out of there, so that's good. I did it in the right order. Let me go look. Let's see what happened. Okay, I'm going to open the green valve a little more and blast a little more water through there. Okay, I went outside and I saw air bubbles in the water just right where this is next to my boat. So, yeah, this thing was clogged up. I'm glad I didn't try to just start it, especially without a strainer on here. Okay, so I'm going to open this up more. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut the green one off now. And we got the water turned on. And hopefully that's flushed out enough so it won't suck anything in, and or too much anything. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse it all out with this hose again when I'm done running it. If she starts, I hope it starts. So the water now is on to the engine. The green hose is off. I'm going to go outside and turn it off on the dock. Then we'll try to start the engine. Okay, seawater is on. Here's the impeller, and this is what pumps salt water in through the engine. Here's the hose, and you saw the hose at the other end, and there's nothing in between, so there's no strainer on here. I'm going to eventually, after I run this engine today, make sure it's running. The next time I fire it up, I'm going to have a strainer in here. At any rate, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up and I'm going to put the key in the ignition, and I'm going to turn it and see if the gauges and everything activate. So if that happens, then I know the battery's right. And then what I may do, I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn the glow plugs on. This engine does have glow plugs that warms up the cylinders before you start it. So you need to preheat the cylinders on a diesel engine. Most of them have it. Some engines don't, but this one does. So what that does is it preheats the cylinders and it makes the engine start easier. When I first bought this boat, and I've only run this engine a couple times, the owner started up the first time when I was looking to buy it, and he used the glow plugs and it started right up, no problem. Then a few months later, I went ahead and started it, and I thought I'm going to try starting it out without activating the glow plugs, and it was summertime. And it just fired right up, no problem. It was like it didn't need the glow plugs. But I'm going to go ahead, preheat the chambers a little bit. Let's see if it starts. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Yes! Purrs like a kitten. Okay, you can see the exhaust is got water coming out like it should. No smoke at all. This is awesome. Everything's working. The alternator's charging the battery. Everything is working. I got the prop running because it's not good to run the engine without a load on it. And I'm going to go ahead and throttle it up some and see what happens. Oh, it sounds great. Started right up too. I haven't ran it in 5 years or 6 years. I think it's been 6 years.
Well, my motor is gone. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with it, you know.
Oh, yours?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, I'm not a diesel mechanic, so I might find a place to tow it in.
Oh, yeah.
And take it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Engine oil pressure is good. Water temperature is good. Throttle her up. It's like blue smoke. Yes.